to feed those kids and that she got into a house, dude, I'm telling you, for those of you watching, there's no excuse. And by the way, I'm not saying that you're not going through tough times. I'm not minimizing that you might be struggling. But what I am saying to you, and let me be very clear, is please, for your family, for yourself, don't ever stop dreaming. At least inch towards it. Take a step every day. You don't have to do it tomorrow. Everybody's got this notion that you have to hit home runs every time you go to bat. No, get on base. Let your team give you homework that you can complete to get closer and closer and closer. Because I'm going to tell you something. The next 5 years are coming, and they're coming quick. I read a statistic that says that the average life expectancy in the United States is 78 years. You know how many days that is? It's 28,500. Doesn't that number, even though it's bigger than 78, doesn't that number seem a lot smaller?
It does, because it's every single day.
It's every single day, man.
One less day you
I
have
did the
on.
calculation.
What are you doing, right?
If that's true for me, I have 6,500 days left. Like, I'm running out of time. So what are we waiting for? At least inch. Get yourself, surround yourself with the right people. That's the other thing. Stop wasting time with the wrong people. You're never going to do it. You can't do it. There's no way. You know, that sells
Not
on CNN, and it sells in papers and CBS and Fox Network. That sells a lot.
Yep.
But don't let it sell your soul. Take the inches of steps. You know, we've all heard this one. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
How do you reach your goal? 1 foot in front of the other. Just take one step.
And folks got to remember. Folks got to remember.
Is if this lady could do it, I'm telling you, anybody can. And I'm not saying go get 3 jobs and do it, because maybe homeownership is not something that's on your radar or you even want to do, and that's okay. But if it is, don't let anyone or anything get in the way. Just inch towards it, because the next 5 years is coming quick.
Some folks talk about, I don't have 20%, therefore I can't buy a home. I mean, that's one of the things that we can debunk, right? One of the myths that we can debunk.
100%. There's programs out there. I have tons of programs. You don't have to put 20% down.
Yeah.
Or you can do 2 loans. That's the other thing too. And going back to the ARMs and stuff, which, by the way, an ARM stands for adjustable rate mortgage. They are coming into play now more than ever because those rates are lower. Because think about it, the most expensive loan there is a 30-year. I mean, there are 40-year loans out there, but let's just keep it simple. The 30-year mortgage is the most expensive loan. Why? Because it's locked in for 30 years. That bank doesn't have an opportunity to raise your rate. It's done. That's it. If you get a 7-year ARM, that means that it's fixed for the first 7 years, and then it's variable for the remaining 23 years, because most mortgages are 30-year mortgages in the totality of the years. So when you hear a 5-year ARM, that means it's fixed for first 5 years, variable for 25. A 7 is fixed for 7, variable for 23, and so forth, right? Why is that rate lower? Because the bank has an opportunity. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but they have the opportunity to get more interest from you after the fixed period. But here's the thing. One of the things that changed with the Dodd-Frank is that on a conventional loan, it's illegal to have prepayment penalties. So guess what? In 7 years, when that rate is about to adjust, if it adjusts down, then keep it. If it adjusts up, refinance it.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. You're not stuck. See, everybody thinks in these like short windows of opportunity. No. You have options. You have options. Like right now, rates are in the 5s, right?
Right.
Did you know that every single day on a rate sheet, there's about 10 to 23 different interest rate options? It's not singular. There's no rate. There's rates.
Right.
There's options. You can pay points to buy down the rate if it makes sense. I have a specific formula that I use that'll tell you if it financially makes sense or not. It takes me seconds to do because the numbers don't lie. Don't emotionally say, I'm not paying points to buy down the rate. Do the math. Let me do the math, and I'll tell you honestly whether it makes sense to or not. Okay. Like right now, it might make sense depending on how long you think you're going to keep that property. You don't want a 5%. Maybe it'll cost you a point to get it down to 4.75%. Whatever the case may be. Again, everybody's got different DNA. Your situation's different. But let's give an example. So let's say you work at Google and you know that for a fact you're going to be relocating from San Francisco to Seattle in 5 to 7 years. Why would you get a 30-year fixed? Get a 7-year, because the rate's going to be lower, right?
Right.
And in the 7 years, you sell with NEMA, and then you go buy in Seattle with a colleague of NEMA's, and we'll help you with the financing. That's it.
And I was talking.
Don't overcomplicate things, folks.
I was going to tell you, Ed, I was talking to a first-time home buyer at my open house this past weekend, and I wanted to pick your brain about this because I advised them. I said, listen, the 30-year fixed rate is the most popular loan program, right, in the United States, but it's not the only option for you. If you're a first-time home buyer, chances are, in most cases, and I'm just thinking about myself here, that your plan at least is to not stay in your home for longer than 10 years, your first home.
5 to 7 is the average, by the way, folks.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a 5-1 ARM, right? There's a 7-1 adjustable rate mortgage. There's a 10-1 adjustable rate mortgage. And those will be lower than the 30-year fix, right? So it's just, right. It's just playing that house hacking, that mathematics game with what works best, right? And at the end of the day, you can always refinance because we see in the headlines, right? Again, going back to headlines, terrify more to clarify.
I love that.
They may have dropped. I stole that from Steve Harney at Keeping Current Matters, but
such a great.
They may have doubled, right? Because it's all relative. They may have doubled since January of 2021.
Yeah.
Doubling today. But if we take a step back, like you said, 35,000 feet in the air, and we look at the past few decades, the average rate, has it not been around 6%, 6 to 8%?
6 to 7%.
6 to 7%. There you go. So when we look at the past 3 decades, these are still low historically, low historic.
Yeah, we just got used to free lunch. That's the problem. Yeah. Look, at some point you got to pay
subsidies. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to pay the lady. Look, go back, and again, please take before you speak or before your emotions trick you into fear. Do some research. Okay. The reality is that yes, 6 to 7% is where the rates have been. 2.5% is not real. That was artificial, folks. Has anybody been watching David Copperfield? There is no magic. It's sleight of hand. Okay. Nobody's disappearing. Right. I promise you. Okay. Yeah. No lady's getting sawed in half. I thought dead. That's murder.
And speaking of the past few decades, Ed, like we had mentioned, so we talked on the lending side. Now on the real estate side, the only time the past, I would say 30 years, I think there's been about 5 or 6 recessions. And the only time that home prices didn't rise during the recessions was in 2008. And that's obviously, as we know, because that was a lending housing issue that caused the economy to tank.
Thank you.
So of course, right. And for all the reasons that you had just talked about.
So
even though we might be going into a recession in 2023, I was listening to Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase talking about, right? And he had mentioned that this morning. But folks, recession doesn't mean housing crisis. It doesn't mean that home prices will go down if there's a recession. Now, it can mean that lending percentages, like the mortgage rates
usually go down in recessions. Yes, they do. So it's actually good news for that. And by the way, a recession doesn't mean that you're going to be homeless. Okay.
Right.
There's soft landing recessions, which I do believe this is going to be more of a mild one. This is not going to be a depression. You're not going to be at your local park with a tent. That's not what this means. But recessions do typically bring lower interest rates, right? Right now, what we're looking at employment. Typically, when employment is at an all-time high, that's a red flag that a recession's coming, right? We're seeing that. Prices, obviously, inflation's a real thing. It's the highest it's been. We're hoping that the rise in rates, right, typically will put the brakes on
Yeah.
on inflation, and we shall see. I mean, that's the big elephant in the room. I do believe
Right.
we'll go into a recession, which, by the way, the definition is 2 straight quarters of decline in GDP. We already have one; the other one's coming.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen probably by the end of the month or next month. Will be declared a formal recession. But again, what are you doing to shelter yourself?
Right. What are the steps that you're taking? Right. I
Are
mean, that's what the
you
Federal
spending
Reserve wants to
more?
do.
Are you saving more? Are you taking those steps towards or away from your dreams and goals? That's the question. Because look, I can call it a recession. What does that have to do with you if you're doing really well?
Yeah. Right. It's
Now, I
all
know there's
relative.
an at-large effect, but at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our lives. And part of what I'm
Yeah.
saying to you is there are ways to recession-proof somewhat, at least your life. What's one of them? You better have a team. You better have a team of financial folks. Do you have a financial advisor? Do you have a good tax person who's maximizing your write-offs? Do you have a real estate team, right? So that
Yeah.
if and when you're ready to buy, they have already guided you to success because they're the experts in things that you're not, right?
Yeah.
These are
Absolutely.
really important things to keep in mind because, again, the next 5 years is coming. What are you going to do
Yeah.
about it?
We want to talk about numbers too, right? Initially, we said it over 20% home price appreciation nationally year over year in 2022. At least the analytics firms that I follow are saying they think that by year end it'll be around 9%. So what does that mean?
That's what I'm thinking.
Somehow we got to bring it down 13%. So that's why you're going to see a lot more price reductions, right? It's
Yep.
not anything to freak out about. I believe we're in a healthy market. We get
Yep.
about 30% price reductions. Now we're in the early 20% range, like
There you
22%
go.
price
Okay,
reduction.
so it's yeah, the
National
accelerations,
numbers,
the
right? Yeah.
deceleration's happening.
The
Not
deceleration, right?
Again, not property values, but the acceleration of
Increase.
right
Yeah.
of prices, because what they list it for isn't necessarily what it's going to sell for. Right?
Yeah.
Let's
Uh-huh.
remember the market always speaks.
And we had 17% 2 months ago, 17% on average increase in rent prices. So, we do talk about the increase in mortgage rates and the increase in home prices, but
Yeah.
we
Well,
seldomly
look at
bring up
rents.
rent, right? Because obviously we don't work with rental properties, right? And directly, unless you're in
Remember, I
property.
told you, Nima, that everybody's got a mortgage. The question is, whose mortgage is it,
Whose
and
mortgage are
whose
you paying?
mortgage are you paying? Is
Right.
it your
Yeah.
own or is it your landlord's?
Yeah.
Just saying.
That's so powerful. Who are you paying? Yeah.
Who are
We
you
put
paying? Are you
fear.
paying the IRS too much money?
Yeah.
Because guess what? When you rent, you got zero shelter of deductions
Mhm.
to shelter the IRS. And what's really funny? If you spell out the IRS and you put the and IRS together, you know what it says? Theirs. It's all theirs if you allow them
Oh
to.
man, I never even thought about that. That's so funny.
It's theirs.
I'm gonna tell my dad that later
And believe me,
today.
they want it. They'll take it.
Yeah, they're coming for it, right? So it's like
They're coming for
going
it.
back
And when
to
you own a
investing.
home, is your home in a trust? Because if
Yeah,
not, it's theirs again. You're going to go through probate. If you don't have a trust, you don't have a will.
yeah,
Prince died intestate. Isn't that crazy? You would
yeah.
think somebody like him, who built his whole life iconic, a legacy, and he died intestate, they're still fighting it in the courts.
Wow.
They're going to go through probate. The government's going to take, what, 53% of that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the siblings will fight and pay way too much attorney fees and dwindle the other 50% that they're keeping. It's just a
Wow.
disaster again because they didn't have a team. Somebody did not advise them. Onwards and
Yeah.
upwards, right?
Yeah.
Be prepared. Be
And
prepared.
and for some of those folks that are still on the fence about buying, and they're like, do I lock in a rate right now? Do I go, or do I wait a little bit later into the year and see what changes? If there's any changes made, if I have a better opportunity to buy. I had a lender that I chatted with, and it's a contact that I have through Housing Wire. And he had mentioned every single time you have a percent increase in your loan, the rule of thumb is that decreases your purchasing power by 10%. And I wanted to confirm that with you.
That's about right.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 10 to 15%.
10 or
Yes.
15%.
Depending
Okay.
on the price, right? But yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
as of right now, all we're seeing is that at least in June and July, I believe it's projected 50 basis point rate hikes back to back. Is that correct? So by the end
Correct.
of the summer, we can be looking at mortgage rates in the 6% range. And let me back up there for a second, because a lot of folks that they see, all right, 50 basis point rate hikes, two of them, that means 1%. That means if we're looking at a 5.3% rate right now, it's going to be roughly 6.3%. High level overview, Ed, can you explain why the 50 basis point rate hike doesn't necessarily mean the rates are going to increase, the mortgage rates will increase by that
Excellent. Much? Good. Yes. Okay. So let's, again, peel this onion. When the Fed raises rates, they raise specifically the federal funds rate. What is that? It's a short-term rate at which banks lend each other money overnight. It's very quick. What does that affect? Credit cards and typically equity lines of credit, because those are variable. Those go up instantly. Okay. It does not affect mortgage rates instantly. Now, does it have a ripple effect? Sure, because everything's interconnected, right? Especially now with technology. However, did we not just, if you rewind this video, you'll see that I said that recessions lower rates, mortgage rates. Okay. Right. So I do believe that we will start to see rates go down. By how much? Not a genie. When? Not a genie. Okay. But I do believe we will see that starting to happen, especially once we start to see, keep very close eyes on CPI, Consumer Price Index, and the PCE, which is the personal consumption and expenditure. Look at those two things. When those things start to drop, you will see that rates will start to drop. Keep in mind, 1981. Okay, shout out to all my 80s people. Okay, 1981, who was the chairman of the Fed? Paul Volcker, Mr. 7 foot. He was huge as a human being. He raised rates, right? He had to again put the brakes on inflation. The 30-year fixed reached a high of 21%. Wow. Then it went down that same year to 13, and everybody thought free money, right? Yeah. We dropped this. Does the narrative sound familiar? Right? 2.5. Now we're in the 5s, right? But the reality is that they will come down. Okay, everything that goes up must come down, and this is certainly one of those situations that this applies. So I again will say this: if you can, then do. Always refinance later. And guess what, guys? When you refinance, typically, how much income dollars comes into place when you refinance and you have equity in that home? None. You're using equity. So let's just give an example, just at large. Let's say you get a 5% today. You're not happy about it because, of course, you're still thinking about the 2.5% free money artificial rate, right? Okay. Yeah, right. You're still mad. I get it. Now you get the 5% because you want the house, right? Fast forward, let's just say it takes a year. And in that year, your house appreciates 50 grand. Let's just call it, okay? Let's just say, I'm just giving you numbers out there. Right. Yeah. And it's going to cost you 20 grand to refinance. How much income dollars, how hard did you work for that 20 grand? None. The house paid to refinance itself with equity dollars. Split it in your mind because they're not the same thing. And by the way, that house is going to appreciate another 50 to 100,000 the next year. Are you refinancing every year? No. So the net effect is free money. It's free. Now, if you want to talk specifically about stuff, please reach out to me so that I can give you your numbers. But I'm telling you that when you refinance using equity dollars to pay for the refinance, not income dollars. Mm-hmm. Big difference. Yeah, absolutely. That's another benefit of a home, that the home has a built-in budgeting system. That's really cool. Think about it in real terms. Well, hey, man, I got to say, I'm so happy that we decided to do this, that we jumped on this call. Me too. We started this. I love these conversations. We're going to have, there's just such a storm that's around there, like I said, with whether it's people that are just misguided or false information. And let's just try to set the record straight for people, if you know, and just try to provide them that type of value that they're looking for. I mean, I'm really excited for us to hop on our next session after the next the Fed rate hike, so we can talk a little bit more and unpack that. Yeah.
and then talk a little bit more about what's going on in the real estate market. But it's been an incredible run. I mean, it's been 10 years that we've just been on this up on this bull run for the past.
Which is typical. Remember, 7 to 10 years is the cycle.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
No surprises there.
Doesn't mean to panic, folks. The market's
not at all.
It comes in and comes down. It can't always just go up. We've just been spoiled with it, ever since over the past 10 years. So we are here, Ed and I are here to unpack all of these things and what's going on in the market and just try to provide you guys with that type of value. So if you have any questions, whether it's on the lending side, reach out to Ed. We'll have all the information in the show notes, both of our contact information. And for me on the real estate side, Ed and I are going to be doing some really cool pop-up events that we have coming up in the near future.
Make sure you get on that list. If you're local here in the Bay Area, you're going to want to get on the list, the invitation list for some of these events, because they're going to be really different.
Yeah.
They're not going to be salesy, cheesy. We're not selling you stuff. No. They're going to be super fun. There'll be like info mixers. We'll be mixing, getting to know one another, but still exchanging information, because brain trust is the number one trust. This is it. You got to trust your brain trust, right? And by the way, also, please don't be shy. Let us know what topics you would like for us to cover, because we have a wide swath of things. And, we'll talk about pretty much anything, including lifestyle stuff. If you want to talk about that, we'll throw that in too, because after all, we are humans. And last time I pinched myself, it actually hurts. It's real.
We got our hobbies, we're family guys, right? We have our sons.
Yes,
so yeah, it's a great, I love that you brought that up. You're absolutely right. Drop us a line, reach out to us, whether it's privately. Yeah. And just let us know what you want to hear about, because that way we can provide more content that, caters to what you want to hear about, what your needs are, and also just gives us things to talk about. And he and I discuss. So I really appreciate you, Ed. I really appreciate
you too, Nima.
And to chat out. 2022 is going to be a really interesting year for us, and we're going to be here for you folks to guide you through that.
Absolutely. Stay positive and stay on track.
Yes, sir. All right, Ed. Hey, it was great chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Same here.
All right.
Have a great day, everybody.